Today we're going to talk about why I could see Bitcoin going up to $23,000 at some point in the near term here. And that's probably the most bullish thing I've ever said on this channel in quite some time. It also means that yes, I'm not going to sell Bitcoin at 17,000 anymore. It's not based on any fundamentals. I do want to make that clarification. We all know that Bitcoin is slow and has very expensive transaction fees. However, even though it's not useful for commerce and it's not that useful for remittances and basically most use cases for Bitcoin, it's a perfect speculative asset. Most people have actually heard about it. If you ask most people to name a cryptocurrency, they're really only going to be able to name Bitcoin most of the time and maybe Ripple or Ethereum, but most of the time they'll only know Bitcoin, right? So there's a lot of that brand there that people that are new to the space know about, and so they feel safer with Bitcoin. More importantly, if we see anything happen in the market, a lot of people tend to move into Bitcoin. And if you haven't watched my last video, there's 3 catalysts that I mentioned that could potentially move altcoins into Bitcoin. Number 1 is a new hard fork that everybody gets excited about because previous hard forks have essentially acted as free money. The second thing is news related to the Lightning Network. It doesn't have to solve Bitcoin's problems to get everybody excited, right? We've seen the narrative between Bitcoin and altcoins change very frequently over the past year. It doesn't take much to change that narrative, and I think what the next narrative is going to be, if we see more news related to Lightning Network, is that the only advantage that most other cryptocurrencies have over Bitcoin, the ones that are trying to be currencies at least, not other ones like Ethereum for example, but the ones that are trying to be currencies, the only advantage they have is that they're faster and cheaper. And the Lightning Network theoretically can basically have infinite speed and very low fees, right? So people are going to all of a sudden switch over to say that altcoins have lost their advantage against Bitcoin once the Lightning Network comes. I'm not saying that's going to actually happen. I'm saying that's going to be the narrative in your average crypto investor. I think that's going to happen at some point here. So that's another catalyst that can move Bitcoin towards the front over altcoins. And then the third catalyst here is the potential for more institutional investors. I mean, how many times have you heard that Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency, or the first asset class rather, where retail investors have gotten in before institutional investors have? You know, it's finally fair, or whatever you want to think about it, but if there's anything relating to an ETF that suddenly pops up, or maybe more mainstream options, anything that signals that institutional investors are going to jump in, maybe some hedge fund numbers, maybe somebody makes a $100 million bet on Bitcoin. We've already seen how such news can affect Ripple because we've seen people make astronomical bets on Ripple and everybody gets excited about that. So those 3 catalysts can move altcoins into Bitcoin. Where did I get the $23,000 figure? Well, I think this Bitcoin dominance figure is going to go back up to 50%. And if it goes back up to 50%, based off of the current market cap, that would put Bitcoin at roughly $23,000. Now that's a very optimistic projection because if Bitcoin dominance comes up, it's more likely to happen in a lot of ways on the downside. In other words, the market as a whole comes down and Bitcoin's dominance rises. And to illustrate this, I want to show you the last time that we've seen something like this happen. Okay, so here we are in PowerPoint. This is a small little slide that I created to illustrate the last time that we've seen Bitcoin come down into the 30% range in terms of dominance. This was back when there was the threat of the flippening against Ethereum in June of last year. And also back then we saw a huge pump in Ripple as well, and then it sort of was starting to cool off here, but it was still fairly big at 11% dominance in the total market. At this point in time, Bitcoin was worth $2,650. So this was when Bitcoin's dominance was at an all-time low, and we haven't reached this 37% until just recently. What happened next, a lot of you guys are aware that there was sort of a bear market-ish, I don't know if you really want to call it that, but July was not a good month for cryptocurrencies. And when July came along, Bitcoin came all the way down to 1,900 from 2,650. So that's a fairly substantial decline. However, its dominance increased from 37% all the way up to 50%. And this happened because, you guessed it, people moved altcoins into Bitcoin. Why did they move their altcoins into Bitcoin? The same reason that we see small caps rotate into large caps. So the same reason we see growth companies rotate into value companies. When we have a flight to safety, Bitcoin, as volatile as it is relatively safe compared to other cryptocurrencies. It's much more proven, has a longer track record, and people understand Bitcoin and they know that it's been around forever and there's community support behind it, developer support behind it, so on and so forth. It's not going anywhere, right? So people move their assets into Bitcoin from other cryptocurrencies so that they can keep their exposure to the market but feel a little bit safer than they do with altcoins. Now, what happened next, everybody's aware of. The cryptocurrency market as a whole started to take off. Bitcoin dominance stayed relatively the same, sort of fluctuated between that, 45 to 50% area. But this is when we really saw cryptocurrencies start to take off. Bitcoin went up to 4,400, and the rest is history. Now, I'm only assuming that Bitcoin dominance comes up to this 50% level. However, you can see here that there was 2 points, once in November and once in December, where we saw that dominance eclipse 60%. This was when there was hype surrounding SegWit 2x, and then in December there was hype, I guess, really nobody fully understands what happened in December. I guess you could say it was futures, but I think it was just irrational exuberance. But really this move from October to December, we saw Bitcoin dominate altcoins. And the narrative at that point was that altcoins were going to die because Bitcoin is king and it has the brand and everybody knows about it and everybody's interested about it. We're still in the early adopters phase. People are not ready for all of these different altcoins. Basically, everybody was saying that altcoins were going to die. And now we have this huge tailing off in Bitcoin dominance, and now everybody thinks that Bitcoin is going to die because of the transaction fees and because of the fact that it's slow. And I'm here to tell you that most people don't buy cryptocurrencies to use them. They buy cryptocurrencies because they want to speculate on the future potential of that utility, and because they believe that maybe, in some cases you might have people who think that Bitcoin's going to replace fiat currencies. Some people think it's just going to be an alternative. Some people think it's going to be a better PayPal. There's all sorts of different speculations on what the future of cryptocurrencies will hold. But what I do know here is that Bitcoin's not going anywhere, and most people aren't buying these cryptocurrencies to use them. So the fact that Bitcoin isn't that useful isn't that important, because the reason most people, I think, are investing is 2 reasons. One is because they're speculating that somebody will pay a higher price, and then secondly, because they believe in the future of cryptocurrencies. And if you believe in the future of cryptocurrencies, then you just believe in Bitcoin, period. In most cases, that's the mainstream idea. So I do think we're going to see a rotation back into Bitcoin. If we see a rotation back into Bitcoin, I think that market dominance figure is going to go up to 50%. I don't know when it's going to happen. I do have an idea of what catalysts are going to cause it. Again, a hard fork, the Lightning Network, or financial institution support. If we see any of those things happen, I would not be surprised to see dominance increase. And if dominance increases at the current market cap of the cryptocurrency market, we could see Bitcoin reach $23,000. And I would not be surprised to see that. And this all assumes that dominance doesn't go up to 60% like we just saw it do last month. I mean, it was just a month ago that market dominance was at 60%. And everybody is discrediting Bitcoin as if it's going to die. And it's just not that likely, especially not in a market that isn't based on utility. You have to pick one, right? Some people are saying Bitcoin isn't useful, therefore it should die off. But at the same, in the same vein, most other cryptocurrencies that those same people are bullish on aren't useful either. But they're blinded to that truth. So I just wanted to talk about this briefly. Probably the most bullish video I've made on Bitcoin in quite some time. I'm aware that things could go the opposite way as well. We could see Bitcoin go down to 10,000 or lower. But even if it does go down to 10,000 or lower, this chart here shows us that even back in July, we saw the Bitcoin dominance increase as we saw the market fall because people flee to Bitcoin. And I also think they're going to flee to Bitcoin when it starts performing really well. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a $23,000 Bitcoin soon. As usual, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I tend to be a little bit more active on my Steemit if you want to interact with me. I've been a little slow on getting to comments recently just because of the fact that there's so many of them and people leave really long comments that take me forever to respond to if I want to do a legitimate response. So I might be slow responding to your comment, may take me a day, maybe take me two. Sometimes I'm not going to respond, especially if there's already been a question related to that I've already answered. But there's a much higher probability that I respond on this platform than YouTube, just because I can actually keep up with this. So make sure that you check out my Steemit if you want to interact with me and read some really cool comments from other people. Listen, there's plenty of people on here that disagree with me and give me a piece of their mind, and you can see plenty of examples of that through all of this. So make sure you check out my Steemit. Otherwise, as usual, leave a like, comment, and subscription, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching.